This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hi, it's Adam Ragusia, and yes, my weight is yo-yoing as it has my whole life. From the 1960s, there grew a social movement to destigmatize fatness. That is where we get the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, which most famously has pushed for better public accommodations, bigger seats for big-bodied people. You also get the Association for Size Diversity in Health, which pushes this public health frame they call health at every size. What the health at every size people observed is that people who carry a lot of body fat tend to be discriminated against in the healthcare system. There are many permutations of the same old joke, and it goes something like this. What did the doctor say to the fat guy with the gaping head wound? Have you tried diet and exercise? There's actually a fair amount of research to back up this claim that doctors tend to look at a person and assume that all of their problems stem from their obesity. And what obese people have said in response is, number one, no, I have health problems that have nothing to do with my weight, and you need to pay attention to those. Number two, even if my health problems are related to my weight, I still deserve treatment. Judging by the study outcomes, it is nearly impossible for people to lose a lot of weight and keep it off without serious medical help. So let's not wait for something to happen that is statistically almost impossible before you start treating me for my problems. Treat me now as I am. Anyway. Over on the other side of this particular discourse, you had the medical traditionalists saying this is all hogwash. It's very well established that people who are carrying a lot of extra body fat have much worse health outcomes in almost every area you could imagine. It is not possible to be healthy at every size. Now, in the 21st century, I think that we've seen an enlightened consensus emerge where we acknowledge that fatness is associated with lots of bad things, but fatness is not necessarily the cause of those things. Cardiovascular disease and diabetes and kidney disease and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and all these things exist in a dense web of causality that we now call the metabolic syndrome. And a person's fatness is at most an imperfect proxy for the total problem. People with these problems do tend to be fat, but they're not always fat, and the relationship between the fatness and the problem is murky. Anyway, I think the emergence of that enlightened consensus seemed to ease tensions a bit between the fat acceptance crowd and the fat rejection crowd, but now enter the new drugs. Speaking of consensus, we cannot seem to form one about what to call these drugs. You can call them GLP-1 drugs, but that's not quite right. These drugs do imitate the natural GLP-1 peptide hormone that all our bodies produce to make us feel full when we've had plenty to eat. But some of these drugs also imitate different peptides, like GIP, which works on a totally different receptor. And there are more things like that on the way, so calling them GLP-1 drugs is incomplete. It's like calling all of my cups glassware. They're not all made out of glass. You could call these drugs incretin mimetics. The chemicals that our bodies make that regulate blood sugar and appetite are known as incretins, and a mimetic is something that imitates another thing, which is what these drugs do. They imitate your hunger hormones. But incretin mimetic is even harder to say out loud than GLP-1, so I can understand why that name hasn't caught on among the general public. I suppose we might just start calling these weight loss drugs, because they are the only safe weight loss drugs ever proven to have dramatic and long-lasting effects. These are the only weight loss drugs that actually work, according to any reasonable, real-world standard of what it means for something to work. So let's just call them the weight loss drugs. They're the weight loss drugs. The fat acceptance crowd naturally views these drugs with some amount of suspicion. The medical industrial complex has made a lot of money selling false hope to generations of fat people. And even if the hope is not false, which seems to be the case this time, the body acceptance crowd is still worried that these drugs will reinforce a toxic, thin ideal in society. Now there will be even more pressure to conform to that ideal, since, hey man, all you need to do to stop being fat is to take a medicine, which is still extremely expensive, and not all people's bodies can tolerate it. I am, as you can tell, very sympathetic to the fat acceptance arguments, but I do think that the ongoing research on these drugs points to something that the body positivity community should view as something of a vindication. The latest evidence is on your side, my friends, because these drugs work even if you aren't fat, or even if they don't change your level of fatness. In clinical trials, in people who either did not lose weight or did not need to lose weight, we are still seeing dramatic improvements in cardiovascular health, kidney health, brain health, addiction, substance abuse disorders. Science is still untangling all the whys and the hows, but it sure seems like these drugs are proving the enlightened consensus about weight to be essentially correct. If a drug treats some elements of the metabolic syndrome without impacting weight, if you get healthier on these drugs, even if you keep your calories exactly the same, that would indicate that weight is only one node on this whole dense web of causality. I think that body acceptance advocates should view these developments as vindication. It's not just about fatness. It might not even be primarily about fatness. It's about our brains. The common denominator here is the hormones that influence how we relate to food, both physiologically and psychologically. We are evolved to live a life where food is only available some of the time. And so, to be healthy, our bodies seem to need some downtime when we are not eating, or when we are not getting the hormonal signal to eat. The signal itself may have a role in how these very complicated biological systems actually operate. We ought not view these drugs as a miracle cure, and we certainly ought not drop our guard around big pharma. I am curious about the side effects that we're starting to see now that vast numbers of people are taking these drugs. I'm curious about how effective they will be in the very long term after decades of use. And I am curious about why they seem to work for so many different things. A great expert on the internet to follow for this stuff is David White. David is a nurse practitioner. That is a nurse whose level of education entitles them to prescribe medications in the US system. He doesn't need to go through a doctor to give you medicine. And nothing that David says on my channel should be construed as medical advice, yada, yada, yada. He's just a real smart guy who deals with these drugs every day in his practice, and he spends a lot of time at night reading and posting about the latest research. His blog is called The Incretin Space. That and his social links are in the description. So, here's the first of what I hope will be some ongoing conversations with Nurse David about weight loss drugs. First thing to ask is, what kind of side effects are we seeing?
I mean, the biggest one, and the trial data bears this out as well, is usually nausea. I just informally call it the big four. So like whenever you see a top line result or a published result, they'll almost always have nausea, vomiting, constipation, and diarrhea.
Guess what? There's an over-the-counter medication that I've heard can treat all four of those things, and it even has a song.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And the fifth that I would add is usually some form of heartburn. You'll hear patients, and I don't even have to mention my patients, like you can look on Reddit or really any social media circle, people will call it sulfur burps, which is just the drugs delay your gastric emptying, they delay your stomach from moving forward, and so you get a little little fermentation.
Yeah.
And so, but even that is same thing, there are ways of managing that, pineapple or like to go to the cooking side of things, pineapple, papaya,
the enzymes.
Yeah, the enzymes will help. And people look at you kind of funny, but I'm like, I'm telling you, it'll work. So, but yeah, that's one thing with the side effects. I tell patients all of it's manageable.
Yeah.
A lot of it too in the trials is their goal is let's get you up to the highest dose. Let's lose the most amount of weight as fast as we can. And, but if you are slow in titrating these drugs, they're really actually quite tolerable. And even when you look at the side effect, like the actual absolute rate of side effects, you're even with the nausea, you're talking a 20% absolute rate. And over time, because most of the drug companies will publish the side effects over time, you'll watch it just it slowly drops away as the body kind of gets used to the new normal. And
the new normal, right? Like the new normal where we are all expected to be internet personalities in addition to our real jobs. Love that, but you can make it more doable with Squarespace, sponsor of this video. Easiest way to build a website. Do you still need a website? Well, the expert that I'm talking to in this video, I know who he is because of his website. He hung a shingle online, I noticed it, and now he's on my channel with millions of subscribers because that's how these things work. If you want to be discovered, you have to make yourself discoverable, and a website from Squarespace does just that. They even have new search optimization tools to help the AI chatbots find your site and bring it to people's attention. Of course, building the site yourself is just stupid easy at this point. Start with a template or a computer prompt and just start tweaking it until it's right. It's all drag and drop. Payment processing, email marketing, everything that you can need to run your site is right here. And you can play around with a site for free. When you're ready to pay to make it live, or to get a custom domain name, save yourself 10% with my code RAGUSIA. You'll be doing us both a favor. Thank you, Squarespace. Anyway, we were talking with David White about side effects associated with the new weight loss drugs. What about the more serious stuff like muscle wasting, which I've understood to essentially just be the normal amount of muscle loss that you would expect with any kind of rapid weight loss, right?
If you talk to people in obesity medicine research, they will reference something like a 3-to-1 ratio or 75-25. So, and by that they mean you should, if you were to just, crash diet, we would expect you to lose about 75% fat mass and about 25% lean mass.
Yeah.
And when you look at these drugs, it's usually anywhere from about 25 to about 35% lean mass loss, and the rest is fat mass loss. But even with lean mass, that depends on your definition of lean mass. It depends on, are you using a DEXA scan? Are you using an MRI? Yeah. Like, I have the conversation with patients, like, if you are going to eat anything, at least get your protein in and at least do resistance training. Those are the two things that I ask, because those are the things that will at least preserve your functional strength, preserve what you already have. And
this is territory that has been explored by, bodybuilders and people like that, right? Like, they know that, like, you're gonna, when you diet down, you're going to lose some muscle, but if you keep lifting the weights and if you keep getting protein, you're going to be able to keep most of it.
Yes. Yeah, correct. Exactly.
Any other big side effects that are concerning you so far?
So there's a slightly increased risk of gallstones and inflamed gallbladder. But even that too is also more related to the weight loss and not the drug, without getting into the physiology. But you lose weight rapidly, and sometimes your gallbladder is not happy about that.
Sure.
So, and even that, patients can get their gallbladder out and then just continue on with treatment like nothing ever happened. So,
yeah. And then there's the big unknown that not even all of the clinical trials can tell us, which is what happens to people when they've been on these drugs for decades.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's a subset. I mean, there is probably a reasonable subset of diabetics that have been on them for an extended period of time. Just
At this point, yeah.
yeah, I mean, liraglutide or Victoza, that was FDA approved in 2012. I'd have to double check my.
2010 in the U.S. He got real close.
But that's been around. I mean, that's generic now. That's how long it's been around. Yeah. So even Ozempic, semaglutide, that was FDA approved in 2017. So we're going on 10 years for that. Even there are definitely people that have been on them for a while, but even the clinical trials, the longest clinical trials are about 5 years, and obviously we just continue to see a benefit as time passes. I say this understanding I don't have any evidence to back this up.
Very scientific,
but also, I mean, it doesn't make just on the mechanism of how the drug works.
You make a mechanistic argument. There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah. On a mechanistic argument, there shouldn't be. It's kind of like if I can use another well-known drug class. With statins, we know the longer you're on them, the lower your risk of cardiovascular diseases.
Sure. Yeah.
And so. I have a feeling it's going to be the same thing. If you're on a drug that causes you to lose 20% of your body weight, and you stay on it for 20 years, you probably will live longer. You'll probably have less comorbid conditions. You'll probably have, less healthcare utilization. I mean, and actually there's already starting to be like kind of, do you know what QALYs are?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, or you can define it in the video, but.
Okay. QALY stands for Quality Adjusted Life Year. We don't just want to be alive. We want to be healthy while we're alive. And QALY is a crude way of measuring that. It's like how many healthy years this medicine gets you. That's a QALY. Anyway.
The QALY data is already starting to line up that, if patients are on these for X amount of time, they do start paying for themselves, even with the current cost. So that's, and insurance companies, obviously, and actuaries everywhere, that's what they're looking for, right?
If you'll permit me to make a mechanistic argument, and also I suppose one drawn from anecdotal experience, when you have a receptor in your body and you pummel it with stimulus, a little bit more than it would normally get, you're going to start to notice some weird things happening. Among them, it's just going to take more and more stimulation in order to make that receptor feel anything. Yeah. Are we not seeing that with these drugs? We're not seeing people just get used to it and the whole system just kind of equilibrates to it?
So there was a cardiovascular outcomes trial called Surpass CVOT, CVOT, that Eli Lilly published last year. And it was almost 5-year-long trial of tirzepatide in diabetics and looking at cardiovascular outcomes. And they included a graph, and it showed the patient's weight and A1C control over that. It was about 4.5 year period. And there's almost no, they lose that weight, the A1C comes down. And if you look at the error bars and the confidence intervals, they're so tight. This is, 15,000 patient trial, and no one is, I don't want to say no one, but the vast majority of people not regaining weight, not requiring a higher dose, their diabetes is under control. And it's, I don't, this is maybe above my pay grade in terms of understanding, but from what I can gather and from what I've talked, for some reason, there's just not that receptor desensitization that you would see with cannabinoids or opioids or, various other, and it may be related to the fact that, the GLP-1 as a receptor is so integral to just our day-to-day physiological function. Sure. And it's one of those things that, it took pharmacology to realize oh, hey, this thing actually does way more than anyone, simplistic understanding is, sure, it suppresses your appetite, it helps with insulin secretion, but I mean, it is
Tip of the iceberg.
yeah, half-inch view. I mean, it's, I'm working on a blog post right now on the anti-inflammatory effects, and I've been writing for a month and a half now because I'm just trying to translate it down to regular in English, but also it's just like every time I read one paper, I'm like, oh wait, there's another thing. Do I need to add this now? Like I actually found an evolutionary development paper about where this came from, and you can kind of track the development of the GLP-1 class, or I guess I should say more appropriately what's called pre-pro glucagon. So that's, you get GLP-1, which everyone knows about. You get GLP-2, which is another intestinal hormone, and you also get glucagon, and then you get a couple other random bits that don't do much. And that family of those three hormones are so deeply conserved, evolutionarily speaking. So there's a really great paper that talks about some of the benefits of these drugs outside of the weight loss, and it had the actual amino acid sequences of glucagon. And I mean, you can go way back, way off from the primate family tree, and you could get whale glucagon and it would work in a human. Yeah. You could get some of the bony fish glucagon is still similar enough that you could give it to a human and get an effect. So clearly evolution was we need this class of hormones. And I think that's my speculation as to why you don't see desensitization, because it's this is actually mission critical to keeping you alive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I suppose all of that is a lot of reason to be excited, but also reason to proceed with caution.
Yes.
If we're dealing with such a powerful primordial force.
Yeah.
I about 3 years ago publicly predicted that obesity as we know it would be over as a pandemic in highly developed countries within 10 years. So I've got 7 more years for that admittedly bold prediction to come true. I wonder how on schedule you reckon we are. I actually feel kind of good about it so far, because it is proceeding the way I imagined, where you're starting to not see fat rich people anymore.
That's not to be crass, but that's your signal. Right. But
that's where it begins.
But there was a big hullabaloo about how the rate of obesity in the U.S. has flattened out in the last couple of years, and it's is that the drugs? Is that the first signal that enough people are on these that we're starting to see a downward deflection in the obesity rate? You might be a little aggressive, but at the same time, I mean, some of the stuff that's in development, retatrutide, which is a triple agonist that will have phase 3 data, weight loss data here in about, it's mid-April when we're recording this, and the data is due to be published the first week of June. Yeah. So not too long for that. And that drug is going to show bariatric surgery outcomes.
Outcomes comparable to bariatric surgery, you mean?
Yeah. So,
and by triple agonist, you mean it's acting on 3 different receptors?
Yes. Yeah. So it acts on GLP-1, it acts on GIP, or and then it acts on glucagon. So acts on 3 things at once. And so the initial phase 2 data showed 24% weight loss at 48 weeks. There was a shorter phase 3 trial that showed 29% weight loss at 68 weeks, with patients still losing weight at 68 weeks. And the trial that will have data published in June will have an 80-week and 104-week data arm. So, my expectation is, 29%, you're 1 point away from 30%, and 30%, 25% is the start of bariatric surgery loss. Yeah. 30 to 35% is usually what most bariatric surgeons will say is the goal. So yeah, we could have a drug that has that level of efficacy. And if that becomes broadly accessible, then yeah, it's pretty reasonable to expect obesity rates to plummet. And then even ignoring that, there are so many other drugs in development that it seems like the floor is about 15 to 20% weight loss, which again, like that's going to drive a significant number of people into just overweight and not obese anymore. So, I mean, by 2035, I think, it's reasonable to see significantly less obesity.
What are you most excited about looking ahead?
I mean, so the drug that I just mentioned, retatrutide, very excited for that. Just on the mechanism alone, I mentioned it acts on glucagon. That has if you ask most people in the medical field, they're like, oh, that's the drug we give to raise people's blood sugar. Except that in this case, when you are kind of depressing the lever for it for an extended period of time, the opposite happens. So it increases insulin sensitivity. It lowers. It actually helps lower blood sugar, as counterintuitive as that sounds. But it also is. So I like to explain this as glucagon is like a starvation signal to your body, and you can again go back to maybe before clinical trials were as ethical as they are now, where we did starvation studies on live human beings. But glucagon is the signal that comes through when people don't eat for a prolonged period of time. Their insulin levels drop, and it forces your body to start burning fat. So, another way to put this, so GLP-1 basically reduces your intake through appetite suppression. And then, glucagon's like adding, basically like telling your body, hey, grab the firewood out back and, throw that on as well.
Yeah, it's saying this is not a temporary decline in available calories. This is winter. We're in this for the long haul. We need to adjust our whole system to this new reality. Yeah.
So you get less intake, and then you are burning more, and so that's obviously a recipe for weight loss. And then side benefit, because you're burning lipids, that includes cholesterol. So you will see pretty profound, again, going back to some of the earlier data on that drug, they saw almost 25% drop in LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. That's what you would see with taking a statin medication. So, I look at it as like, imagine if you could take a drug that makes you lose weight and it drops your cholesterol like a statin. Like, again, on the economic argument, like that's very compelling to me as a clinician, like, oh, hey, like you can take this one drug once a week and, and that fixes what ails you. So,
yeah. Awesome. So now you've met Nurse David, and he's going to be our guy watching the incretin space for a while here. Check his blog and his socials in the description. There's clinical trials underway using these drugs to treat major depressive disorder, bipolar schizophrenia, alcohol and opiate addiction. Like the man said, these drugs work on your brain more than they work anywhere else. Make good choices with your brain and your body, and we'll talk about this stuff again soon.